Hello, welcome back. Amanda here with Crafting with Amanda, and I'm going to do something today that I used to do all the time with the workshops from close to my heart. So I'm taking this Sawyer card workshop, but I'm going to cut all of the instructions using an old paper pack I have. And the paper pack I happen to have is called Cheerio, and it's so old it doesn't even have the zip strip on it. The back side is just a tone-on-tone of one of the colors in the paper pack. It's just an old paper pack, so I'm trying to use my stash here. So you can see this, it even has the old stickies, which is like a cardboard thickness of stickers, and there's no information in here as far as what colors are in it, because when I was packing my stuff I was trying to save room and I took out all the information sheets. So here I'm just using my color swatches and trying to find some cardstock that will coordinate with it well enough. Like one of them was blush, and I don't have any blush cardstock because that's been retired for so long. And the blue is crystal blue, and thankfully in my envelope of all of my scraps I had some crystal blue, because none of the current blues that I have would have worked with this. So I was making my list and pulling out the different cardstock pieces that would go with it, and then I was going through my stash again and I pulled out some of my dies and just cut a bunch of pieces. I went through my stamps and pulled some out. So one of them is, it was the stamp of the month from 2012, so just, a couple years ago, and it was Mad About You. And then another one was Amore, which was the December 2011 stamp of the month. And I also pulled out Soulmates. And as you can see, the hearts from the thin cut that cuts out all those hearts work perfectly with some of these old stamp sets. So I just wanted to show you, I've used this Amore so much that you couldn't even see the swirl patterns on the heart. And this is the old thin cut with the dragonfly that Close to My Heart sold, but there is one available now that's brand new, and so if you really like how this works out, great. I was trying to make some Valentine cards so that I can send them out here. And I just went through, like I said, my thin cut. I have like a 5x7 sheet protectors with magnetic sheets in them that all my thin cuts are on. So I just kind of flipped through it and I pulled a couple circles. I pulled a little sentiment bracket. I did some scalloped edge from an old border set that we had. And I just kind of cut a whole bunch of different pieces from the cardstocks and the papers that work with this Cheerio collection. So now I'm looking at the instructions for the Sawyer workshop, and if you want these instructions, I will have them on my blog so that you can either get the full PDF file that has all of the instructions, or if you just want a couple of the pages to print, I will have them as JPEG files or photo files that you can just print the individual pages that you need. So I'm kind of looking at the screen and looking at the cards to figure out what papers might work for the different section of the cards. And really I only had one paper that, because this isn't two-sided like the Sawyer paper is, like the new Close to My Heart papers are, that I had to cut it out of a different paper later on, and I will talk about that. So here my first cut is just 5.5 inches wide, and first I thought I was going to do 4 1/4, but then I realized nope, do 5.5, and then I'll go back and stack these up. So I'm cutting 2 strips at 5.5, leaving me a 1 inch left, and then I turn those and I will cut 2 times to give me 4 pieces that are 5.5 by 4 1/4, and that is for card piece number 1A. So that goes in pile number 1. And then I'm going to cut by 5.5 4 1 inch strips. So I'm going to do that here with what was left over from those pieces originally. So we have 4 of those, and those are also for card number 4, piece E. And then there's not quite 2.5 inches left, but I went ahead and cut the 1 inch strip so that I now have 1 inch, and I'm going to cut it down to 4 1/4. So I now have 2 of those for piece 2B, and then I'm going to cut 2 more of them here from the 1 inch strip that I cut off initially at 4 1/4. So now I have 4 1 by 4 1/4 inch pieces. And then to kind of work ahead, I'm cutting that 1 by 2 1/4. And that was for piece 1C. And that's the piece that I end up replacing later, so I cut them this time through, but I replace them later. So here I cut off another 5.5 inch strip, and now I'm going to cut 4 2¼ inch pieces from that 5.5 inch tall piece, and those go to pile 4, and it's piece B. So you can see all that up here in the instructions. And remember that YouTube is really good about letting you slow down the video or speed up the video. The voice sounds a little different if you slow it down, but at least the instructions are here on the screen for you. So now I have this 4-inch piece, and I'm cutting it into 1.5 inch strips for card 3A or piece 3A. And I'm going to cut off another 1.5 inch strip to get the other 2 pieces that I need that are 4 inches long for piece 3A. So now I'm just going to cut all these 1 by 2¼ inch pieces. I need 7 more because I already cut some from the first piece of paper that I cut. And like I said, these I don't end up needing because the back is pale pink, and one of the cardstock colors that I chose was pale pink. It was too much tone on tone, and there wasn't enough contrast for the design, and you'll see that later. But I did not end up using these pieces that I'm cutting now. I cut them out of a red stripe paper later. But if you are cutting the Sawyer papers, or if you want to cut the Sawyer papers, Close to My Heart does a live Facebook event, and it's going to be on March 8th at 2 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So if you want to get the cuts with them, you can. Otherwise, you can go through here, and in the workshop guide, it'll tell you which pieces to cut, but the dimensions are what I am doing here. So now I'm just showing you, this is card 4, and these are the pieces for it. And card 1, we have 4 of the big pieces, and then all of these littles that, like I said, I end up replacing later. Card 2 just has the 4 strips for now, and card 3 also has the 4 little strips. So now I am moving on to the first cardstock paper, which in this case is my blue stripes. And I want to be specific in that my stripes are going sideways because in my end project I want them to be up and down. So I cut that off at 5.5, and now I'm cutting 3 4-inch pieces, and those are for card 3. And because I want my stripes up and down, I'm going to cut another 4-inch piece, and then I will trim it down to 5.5. And that second line should say 4 by 5.5, not 4¼ I apologize for that. So it really is 4 inches, not 4¼ And now I'm going to cut a 4¼ inch piece, turn it, and trim off 1.5 inch pieces that will be for card 2C. Alright, so we are done with the stripe paper. So now we're going to go with the pink, and this is just a scrap that I had laying on my desk. So it works for the most part, but I realized that one of the pieces was 1 inch wide, and 5.5 times 2 is 11. So I went ahead and cut this down to 11 inches so that when I cut the 3¼ strips, I get the exact 4 pieces that I need when I cut them at 5.5. I hope that makes sense. I'm just trying to save paper since I'm using scraps versus getting out a whole sheet of cardstock. So I have this 1 inch strip, and I'm going to cut it down to 5.5 inches for card number 4. And then this last piece, it's not quite 2 inches wide, so I just cut it in half as best I could, and then I trim it down to 5.5. That 1/4 inch or so that it's going to be off isn't going to make a difference in that particular pattern, or at least I hope not. I will make it work, and you'll see that next week. So now this is not a cardstock obviously, but I loved the pattern of this, so I'm cutting it at 4¼ wide, and then I will cut 4 pieces that are 1 3/4 inch and 4 pieces that are 1 1/4 inch, and those go into piles 4 and 2 respectively. But I just thought, like I said, this isn't a cardstock piece, but in the Sawyer pattern, they actually had you stamp on one of the cardstock pieces, and this way I won't have to stamp, I'll just have some interest already built in with the old pattern paper. So I'm going to finish up my 1 1/4 inch cuts here and put those in pile number 2. And I think we're getting down to the white cardstock left for sentiment pieces. So here I show that I cut a 4.5-inch strip, and then I cut it down into 3-inch sections, and you get 4 of those. So that'll be for card number 1. And I think I'm gonna need a new cutter soon. This one has been dropped and it's broken a little bit, and the cutting mat is off, or maybe I just need one of those cutting mats again. So now I'm cutting a 3.5-inch strip, and then I'm cutting it down to 3 3/4, and I get 3 out of the first one. And then the next piece you'll see ends up being, it's 4 inches. So I cut off a 3.5-inch piece and then trim it down to 3 3/4, and that's my 4th piece that I need for card 3C. So it's already 4 inches, so now I'm just gonna whip off some 1.5-inch sentiment pieces here, and that will go into card 4. And that's as hard as it is to do the cutting for the Sawyer workshop. So this is the paper that I pulled because I don't have the beautiful rainbow zip strips on this paper. I thought I would use this as my zip strips for card number 3. So I'm cutting 2 1/2-inch sections, and then I will cut those down to 4 1/4, and they go for card number 3, like I said. And then later, as I'm creating card number 1, I realized that I need to swap out those pieces, but if you wanted, you could go ahead and cut those now for card number 1 that are 1 inch by 2 1/4, and you will need 8 of those. So here's card number 1. I'm just kind of showing you what pieces that I have. So I have the 4 bases, or the 4 pattern that are bases, then cardstock, the pink, and then these pieces I end up swapping out in the sentiments. Grab my 4 card bases, and that's card 1. So for card 2, you just have 3 different pieces of pattern paper. Normally you would have 1 piece of pattern paper and 2 pieces of cardstock, but because I use pattern paper for 2 of my cardstocks, I don't have that. So here I have the 3, which would be cardstock in if you're doing the Sawyer, and then the pattern paper and the zip strips. So that's for card number 3. And you make 4 of each of the different patterns. So now for card number 4, you have your 4 sentiments, your pattern paper, which would be the Gold Rush, and then some more pattern paper there. I have a feeling I might need to swap out some of those for different colors when I get to that card. For today, I'm only going to show making of card number 1. If you're new to my channel, I like to dry fit things and kind of see how they're going to work. But because I cut this card workshop out of different paper, you really need to kind of see if you made good choices when you picked patterns and cardstocks. And as you can see here, I needed something that has more variation from that pink cardstock than the back of the pattern paper. So this is where I go ahead and make 8 of those 1 inch by 2 1/4 inch pieces. And what I'm going to do, and I'll do this for the cards for next week too. So for project number 1, I will do the first card similar to how the Sawyer workshop card looks, like the same orientation. I'll try to mimic or emulate some of the embellishments in the stamping, just to kind of show you this is what you can do. I have these scalloped edges, and in the Sawyer workshop you actually get the scalloped thin cut, and I have that. I bought the workshop, but I kind of wanted to show you that you might already have stuff in your supplies that'll work, so don't be afraid to pull them out. And I found on this Amore stamp, that stamp of the month, it's a border of kind of loopy hearts, and I thought that would mimic the pattern that they have on the original Sawyer card. And I apologize, I meant to have this card up in the corner so you could see kind of the inspiration of it. But if you go to my blog or download the workshop from there or from Close to My Heart, you can actually download it from the Close to My Heart ordering page with the kit. It'll show you download guide, so you can just do that. But here I'm going to do 2nd generation of a heart to kind of give some background to this sentiment on the front. So it says "You're sweet," and now I'm pulling off some other stamps that I want to use, and I'm trying to get the right block so that I have everything that I need. And for second generation stamping, you ink it up and then you stamp it first on a scrap piece of paper and then stamp it right on your project, and it gives a lighter hue from the original ink color. So you can see that there's just a nice light pink over "You're sweet." And I've lost my big blocker. It's been misplaced somewhere. So I'm going to use the front of my Misty as my block here. And I'm just lining it all up so that I can stamp right on the edge of that sentiment. And I don't want to get ink onto the foam from the back of my Versa mat, just because then I'm that person that'll have it on the back of everything and on my fingernails, and it's just a mess. So I grabbed a piece of scrap paper there. And then I'm inking up the dragonfly that comes with the thin cut. And like I said, this is the older dragonfly that came out a couple years ago, but there is a current dragonfly that's available with a matching thin cut and stamp if you're interested. And you can go look at any of that on craftingwithamanda.com and go to the shop button. And I'm going to ink up all the edges of all the different pieces, and I'm not going to make you watch that, but here I will show you kind of putting this card together. So first thing I do is glue everything down. I like to make sure that everything is well adhered. Coming from Michigan and cold weather, if you used adhesive runner, a lot of times your card would arrive in pieces in the mail because everything had kind of come apart. So if you haven't seen me with butterflies, I'm the same with dragonflies. I like their wings to look like they're flying, so I'm just kind of curving it up here and using some foam tape to help prop those two wings up. And these are the foam hearts that are in the current idea book. They come in the different colors there, and I'm just grabbing the red ones. And then from the Cheerio sticker sheet, you can see that's level 2, back when we called it level 1 and level 2 scrapbooking. And using the green lidded Tombow, because it dries a little tacky, I'm adhering those foam hearts. And then I realized I didn't put the scalloped edge on anywhere, and I really wanted to do that. So this is not like their original card because they had it along the right hand side, but I went ahead and just added it to the front, or to the top right corner, excuse me. Now on the inside I'm stamping Happy Valentine's Day, and then I'll also add this little heart in the blush color, and all of the cards have this same sentiment on the inside. So I didn't show you all of that, but that's what they all have. So here I'm doing my second generation because I really liked that for the sentiment behind the "You're Sweet." So I'm kind of assembly line style. I'm not going to do each of the other 3 cards one at a time, because some of it I'm going to keep from one card to the other, but they all turn out very differently. So now I'm going to try to figure out how to add that scallop to it, and I'm just not feeling it. So I'm going to go ahead and start kind of assembling some of the bases a little bit. Just sometimes when I don't have a direction to go in one area, if I can move over to the other, then it just comes together for me. So I changed the orientation of the pink, and then I'm going ahead and putting that scallop in to the right edge, and I really like how that's turning out. I'll trim off those pieces, and at this point I'm just kind of doing a free form, how is this all gonna work together. I have some leaves there that I kind of pulled out that I thought I wanted to put in the back, and then I realized, oh, you already put the glue down on all of it, so if you want to sneak those in, now better be the time. And I was still too late, so I went ahead and cut the one leaf off so that I didn't have to shove too much more under the already glued down sentiment. And then I'm adding my dragonfly there, and then I thought, oh, you have all these hearts in different patterns, so I'm using on the scrap paper, I'm using the outline to line up all the hearts so that I know that I'll get them all with a different outline. So that's exactly what I did, and then I just take my piercing tool to pop them off of the ink, and then I'll use those kind of as embellishments on this card. And it's funny, so I'll put together this card, and that little blue circle button came from the stickies. I didn't bring that sheet in to show you. And later I end up adding a banner to the upper right corner, And that makes, to me, that makes all the difference. So look for that here in a minute. I'll see that and go, oh, this is what I should do. So once again, I'm adding some of these foam hearts. I really like them. They're pinks, and I think there's like a purple and a couple different reds and a couple shades of pink. And I'm grabbing my clear shimmer brush to add some sparkle, because dragonfly wings just shine, at least to me, in the sun. So I finished card number 2 of project 1, and then I just took one of the pink sheets and cut it in half to make the 2 strips for the next 2 cards. Now I'm taking the scallops and I'm just trying to audition at different places, see what I'm feeling. If you didn't notice, I cut those sentiments down so they're almost like 2 1/4 inch squares, I believe. They're not exact, I just tried to keep an even edge around the hearts here. And then I didn't really like how the red leaves were looking, so I brought in the pink leaves. And then again, I kind of got to the I'm not feeling inspired, so I just happened to glance up at card number 2 for project 1, and I'm like, oh, this needs banners to help get some blue in there and balance out that blue. And so that's what I'm doing here, is I'm cutting some blue banners. I added the last of the hearts that I had stamped with the background. Banners are coming to the rescue here, and then I'm soon gonna realize that I needed some more balance with the blue, so it wasn't just this one touch of blue. And so I go to my pile of die cuts, and I had 2 different size circles that I cut. So I'm going to take part of one and tuck it in to give you 3 elements of blue on the top card there. And then again, I'm going to have some balance of blue on this bottom left card. And there's some blue elements in the stickies, and so I was kind of looking at those and seeing what I was feeling. So I'm just dry fitting, and I won't actually have you watch me glue all of these together. But once I get these dry fit, they pretty much are going to turn out this way. So I trimmed that in half just so that I could have a thin banner end along with that thick banner end. Just playing around with the pieces I have. Like I said, I'm trying to get some balance with the blues, adding that to the card. I really like how that turns out, so it's not just all pinks and reds for these Valentine cards. I think I'm getting close to feeling it. I'm liking with these leaves kind of tucked in. I'm looking at my sticker sheet, and there's a sentiment on there with a cupcake. So I figure I can add that. Like I said, I wasn't going to have you watch me ink all the edges, but here's what I ended up doing. So I added the blue square behind, and I added the cupcake on here, and then I'm going ahead and finishing it off with the shimmer brush. And this is, just add some of those foam hearts and you're set to go. So this is project 1, the 4 cards from the Sawyer card workshop pattern. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I just hit 800 subscribers, and I would love for you to join us. Here's another video you may be interested in, and have a really blessed day. Thank you.